It's May, we're all looking at our calendars, and there is absolutely zero sign of the Avengers Doomsday trailer. Nothing. Nada. Just complete radio silence. And I know we're all thinking about it because back in mid-April at CinemaCon, they actually showed this footage behind locked doors. They confiscated phones, they clamped on security, but of course those whispered audio leaks still managed to set Twitter on fire. The immediate assumption we all had was that they were going to drop this online any day now. But here we are, stranded in this agonizing May drought. I really want to unpack what's going on behind the scenes here because this massive delay, it's not a mistake. It is an absolutely fascinating, fiercely calculated move. So where on earth is the Doomsday trailer? Right after that explosive CinemaCon showing, the initial intel suggested we wouldn't be waiting long at all. And honestly, that made perfect sense, right? The logic was, drop it quickly in early May, get ahead of the noise, and steer completely clear of the massive June and July theatrical slate. You want your big moments swallowed up by the rest of the summer blockbusters. But this deafening silence we're sitting in right now, it points to a massive strategic pivot. This is a multi-million-dollar chess move by a studio that knows exactly how to play the board. Let me explain how this change in plans reveals exactly what they're doing with their absolute biggest asset. Let's really look at the timeline here and the psychology behind it. Mid-April was the CinemaCon showing, highly exclusive, totally hyped up, but completely hidden from the general public. It gave the diehard fandom this massive adrenaline spike. Then we rolled into May, which everyone assumed was the launch window, but instead it turned into this incredibly quiet, torturous waiting period. And now, all the signs are pointing straight to July for the drop. Pushing this release to July fundamentally changes the cinematic landscape. It takes what would have been a standard run-of-the-mill marketing beat in May and morphs it into a world-stopping, monumental cultural event right in the dead center of summer. The main goal here is all about completely dominating the summer box office. And to really get this, we need to think about the theatrical experience. Picture this. You're sitting in a packed, pitch-black theater, buzzing with energy, waiting for The Odyssey or Spider-Man Brand New Day to start. The lights dim, suddenly that iconic studio fanfare kicks in, and the sweeping, dramatic Doomsday theme literally shakes your seat. Dropping the trailer in July means it gets perfectly, strategically attached right to the front of those absolute cinematic behemoths. You don't just toss a trailer for an Avengers movie onto YouTube on a random Tuesday for people to watch while they're scrolling on the toilet. No way. You want a captive, electrified audience in a dark room. You want your biggest marketing piece attached directly to the biggest, loudest theatrical events of the entire summer. And that beautifully sets up the next massive piece of this July puzzle, the road to San Diego Comic-Con. We literally cannot underestimate the cultural weight of Hall H. We are talking about the undisputed global epicenter of pop culture hype. People literally camp out on the grass for 3 straight days just for a chance to get inside that room. By holding the Doomsday footage until that specific event in July, the studio maximizes the global entertainment spotlight. It's just brilliant strategy. You show it in that room first. You let those thousands of fans absolutely lose their minds, and you let their frantic live reactions and detailed tweets flood the internet. It creates this unbearable, deafening echo chamber of hype. And only then, when the entire internet is at an absolute boiling point, do you drop that glorious 4K video for the rest of the world. Section 5. The Endgame Marketing Playbook. There's a really fascinating piece of industry logic going around right now that goes like this. Little, but huge. Dropping small teases here and there till we're about 5 or 6 months away. Let's break down what little but huge actually does to our brains as fans, because this is the absolute art of starvation marketing. Starving the audience builds an insatiable appetite. Think about it for a second. If they just gave us everything right now, full trailers, detailed plot summaries, high-risk character posters, the conversation would peak way too early. We'd talk about it for a week, and then the hype would completely fizzle out over the long summer. But by giving us practically nothing, the conversation gets incredibly loud. Because we are so starved, every single little whisper, every blurry leaked pixel, every cryptic quote from an actor becomes front-page headline news. Let's spend a minute on the number 6 here, because 6 is the absolute magic window. The heavy-hitting, aggressive marketing campaign is strictly reserved for the final 5 to 6 months before a movie comes out. Compare that to a 12-month window. If you start heavily marketing a film a full year in advance in today's digital world where everything moves at lightning speed, people just get fatigued. They get burned out. They get sick of seeing the exact same posters and the same repetitive ads every time they open their social media feeds. But if you compress all of that intense energy into a strict 6-month sprint, It guarantees the hype never has a chance to stagnate. It creates a sheer, vertical, unstoppable climb of momentum that leads directly into opening night. Section 6, the bridge strategy. Let me break down exactly how this works on an emotional level, because the bridge strategy is all about leveraging older cinematic masterpieces to sell the future. In this specific case, it means re-releasing Avengers Endgame back into theaters to build narrative and marketing momentum for Doomsday. Think back to what it felt like sitting in a theater during the climax of Endgame. Do you remember the literal deafening cheers when Cap finally caught the hammer? It was electric. By putting Endgame back on the big screen, you are actively re-injecting that specific peak emotional high right back into the cultural bloodstream. You remind audiences across the globe of how deeply invested they are in this franchise, and then you directly transfer all of that massive built-up goodwill right onto the next chapter. But this brings up an incredibly dangerous question that we really need to hash out. Will they alter the masterpiece? I'm incredibly passionate about this. If they put Endgame back in theaters to hype up Doomsday, is it just going to feature a simple, tasteful new post-credit scene, or are they going to make the massive George Lucas-style mistake of editing brand new footage directly into the finished film? We really have to talk about the sanctity of a cinematic masterpiece here. You leave masterpieces alone. Tagging a post-credits scene onto the end after the credits finish rolling, that's totally safe. And honestly, it's perfect for building hype. But touching the core film, editing the actual narrative of Endgame, that risks massive fan alienation and severe backlash right before your most important release of the decade. You just don't do it. Section 7, the power of unreleased hype. We need to unpack this brilliant, completely counterintuitive psychological reality. Once the trailer has been dropped, the event is over. This right here is arguably the most powerful form of marketing available today. The anticipation is the marketing. The massive hour-long breakdown videos on YouTube, the endless 50-page Reddit threads, the Twitter trending topics practically screaming about where the trailer is. All of that is providing millions upon millions of dollars in free, sustained organic marketing. As long as we do not have the trailer in our hands, the absence of that trailer is the loudest marketing campaign possible. The second we actually get it, we watch it, we dissect it for a couple of days, and then we mentally move on. Withholding the footage is the ultimate power play. And we've actually seen this exact tactic trace back to a very specific origin point. Let me take you back to the 2021 No Way Home playbook. Do you remember that agonizing drought? The blurry, seemingly leaked images of Andrew Garfield by some scaffolding, the absolute madness and theories it spawned online? That was masterfully handled by withholding footage until the absolute last possible breaking point, and it completely shattered the internet when it finally dropped. We're seeing this exact playbook utilized again right now with the upcoming 2026 brand new day teasers, which will lead us directly into the July 2026 Doomsday event. Withholding footage isn't a mistake. It isn't a delay. It is the undisputed gold standard for modern blockbuster promotion. And the truth is, the only reason they can successfully pull off a massive delay like this is because they are relying on absolutely unprecedented franchise investment. Let me be perfectly clear. Despite any narrative missteps or shifting plans that might have happened over the last few years, the foundational premise they are working with right now is rock solid. We are talking about the earth-shattering magnitude of a reinvented Tony Stark stepping into the monumental role of Victor Von Doom. Because that casting choice and that premise are so massive, the studio literally doesn't need to do the heavy lifting. They don't need to rush a trailer out to beg us to care. We already care deeply. They are resting securely on decades of intense, pre-existing fan investment. Section 8, polishing the visual effects. I want to completely geek out for a second and walk you through the post-production rendering pipeline, because getting this right takes a massive amount of time. Step 1 is the rough CinemaCon cut. What they showed behind closed doors in April was incredibly raw. We're talking missing textures, rough previs animation, and actors standing in front of raw green screens. Step 2 is the Hall Age polish. By waiting until July, they're giving their visual effects teams 3 crucial extra months. That means massive server farms burning incredibly hot, and digital artists working around the clock to refine the lighting and composite those massive, complicated set pieces. Step 3 is the final YouTube render. This delay allows for absolute pinpoint perfection in the CGI and the color grading before it finally hits the general public. Because we really have to remember the nature of internet culture. A trailer leaves a permanent digital footprint. Whatever drops on YouTube lasts forever. The studio knows that the exact second this trailer drops, millions of fans are going to download it in crystal clear 4K resolution, they're going to slow it down to a quarter of the speed, they're going to crank the brightness up 200% just to see what kind of Easter eggs are hiding in the shadows of a single split-second frame. Because of this intense, forensic, frame-by-frame scrutiny, the studio knows they absolutely cannot release unfinished visual effects. If one single shot looks a little rubbery or unfinished, it becomes a meme forever. They need the visual effects to look breathtakingly real and completely bulletproof before the entire world dissects it. So after breaking all of this down, we really have to ask ourselves, is perfection worth the wait? I firmly believe that it is. What we are witnessing right now isn't just a delay, it is a true masterclass in corporate synergy, psychological hype building, and rigorous technical quality control. By intentionally holding this trailer back, they are completely controlling the narrative and setting the stage to completely dominate the entire summer pop culture conversation. But the real question I want to leave you with is this. By starving us for this long and building the hype to this unbelievable boiling point, has the studio set an absolutely impossible standard for themselves? Or are they meticulously crafting the greatest cinematic comeback in history? I guess we'll find out this July.